First, we begin with the nationwide mask mandates for planes and public transit struck down by a federal judge just days after the CDC extended it. Now, the Biden administration says masks are no longer required. Our transportation correspondent, Gio Benitez, is at one of the busiest airports in the country, Newark Airport, with the big changes. Good morning, Gio.
Hey, Michael, and it is very, very busy here this morning. And I can tell you, just looking around here, a lot of people really heard this judge's ruling loud and clear. So looking around this morning, I'd say about half the people here are still wearing a mask. Many are not, though, including some employees. Now, according to the federal government, it is entirely up to you whether you wear one at U.S. airports.
Masks are no longer required on U.S. domestic flights.
This morning, a sight we haven't seen in more than a year.
Mask now optional.
Travelers maskless on planes and walking through airports after a major reversal. A federal judge in Florida striking down the mask mandate on public transportation. The Biden administration saying masks are no longer required on planes, trains, buses, and transportation hubs.
We've made it this far, and it's like, why take that extra risk if we don't have to?
It's fantastic news.
If you want to play that game, go ahead, but I'm going to keep the mask on.
The judge, appointed by former President Trump, saying the mandate exceeds the CDC's statutory authority and violates the procedures required for agency rulemaking. Now United, American, Delta, Southwest, JetBlue, and Alaska Airlines confirming they will no longer make passengers mask up. Fights over wearing a mask on a plane have overwhelmingly made up the number of unruly passengers on flights.
Stop, stop, stop!
Thousands since the start of the pandemic. Now flight attendants urging calm and patience as the industry shifts gears.
We're talking about changing announcements, changing communications to passengers when they're checking in, when they're buying their tickets, changing the signage all over the airports, and changing the policies.
Those revisions now hitting the roads as well. Rideshare company Uber announcing overnight it is dropping mask mandates for drivers and riders. The judge's ruling comes as the nation sees a rise in infections from the BA2 subvariant, with 34 states and territories seeing at least 10% increases over the last week. For the first time since January, COVID infection rates among children are up, but overall numbers are still much lower than during other parts of the pandemic. And back out here live at a busy Newark, we should tell you that the CDC still recommends wearing a mask, but again, no mandate. It is up to you, and it is your choice whether you wear one.
All right, so you have the option, Gio, but not everyone could take a mask off just yet.
Yeah, and this is a really important point, Michael, because we're talking about the federal government. So U.S. airports do not have that mandate. Many companies do not have that mandate. But when you're talking about local governments and local transit systems, they can make their own decisions. For example, New York City, subways, buses, trains, they still require a mask. That mandate is still in place. So you really have to check that out before you travel.
All right. Thank you, Gio. Robin?